everybody, thanks for joining me for another one-man review. I just got the new Fantagraphics Anthology, now number 12, in the mail. Really excited about this. Always excited about any of the anthologies Fantagraphics put out. They're usually pretty hit or miss for me. Like, there will be a couple stories I like and then a few that a number that I don't. I feel like the last couple issues have really been landing almost every story or artist for me. Is there something compelling about it? And this issue has the same vibes. Also, there's some artists in here that I'm already pre-excited about, and I'll talk about that as I get to them. So this is brand new. I don't want to give away the actual content. You should go out and buy the book yourself, but I want to give a preview of who each artist is. This first story here is by Cynthia Varhead. It's Coronalian Stallion. It looks to me, when I flipped to it, I thought, oh, this is a new Moa Romanova story. It has like the exact same look to me, with the clean black line art, the solid colors, and then these like airbrush spray textures on them that look like they're intended for risograph texture or risograph printing. So that was interesting. I don't know if this is like a more common style that I'm unaware of, or if this is someone that was influenced by Moa Romanova, or vice versa. Just that Moa's had more work put out. I'm not sure if they even know each other or where this style's coming from, but it seems like a really particular approach to me, and that I found that interesting. This story basically deals with coronavirus in a way. Like I said, I don't want to spoil any of the stories, but that's what that one is. I like the style. I like the style quite a bit. I really like Moa Romanova's work as well, but I'm curious about the lineage of this one. Then the one that I was really excited about is Banu Pratap, who I've reviewed his work before, got lucky enough to do an interview with him. I find him to be a very thoughtful, philosophical, poetic guy, and his work has that built into it, even though his work often has like extremely disgusting body horror type of stuff, or like grotesque, scatological, sexual things in it. It really stands out from other works like that. And also, you can see his amazing ability with abstraction and composition, but also like leaning into a more realistic drawing. It's really, really nice to see Banu's work in color. I was very excited to see that. Very, very clever with how he's like knocking the blacks back to what looks like a really deep red purple to me. I kind of have trouble with color vision, so I can't quite tell. And then making sure that the background's colored. He's just such a good artist, and I'm glad that he's getting the kind of attention that Fantagraphics will bring. I think Dear Mother and other stories got him the attention that he deserves. I mean, that's how I found out about him, from Strangers Fanzine publishing that. But it seems like he's blowing up at the rate that he deserves, so that's really cool. Again, don't want to spoil it. I really, really like that Fantagraphics chose to put this Cynthia Alfonso story right afterwards, because, and I don't know that this was planned. I don't know that either of these two artists, that Cynthia or Banu, knew what was going on, but the fact that she has these heads following his little bird character head there, at least is a really great curatorial choice by Fantagraphics. The only thing was, it was a little bit confusing because her name's only at the end. So I thought this was a continuation of Banu's, but it didn't look like his work. And then as you turn the page with the black borders and stuff, you're like, oh, okay, we're definitely into a Cynthia Alfonso story now. And you see these characters as the same shape here show up. So I don't know if that was purely accidental or if that was planned in some way. The rest of the stories don't seem to flow into each other, and now doesn't usually have that like linkedness to it. So I think that was just coincidence, and props to Fantagraphics for picking up on that. Eric Reynolds, as he was editing this, putting it together, or Jacob Covey, as he was designing it, for putting that in there. Cynthia Alfonso's work I really, really enjoy. She's another one of these Spanish artists like Maria Medem, and I'm going to blank on her name, the other gal over there. But there's a whole bunch of women over in Spain that are like leaning into this particular style that's, it's kind of like old poster art, very psychedelic, a lot of colors. And I just really, really like the look of what's going on over there. There's some other Spanish artists that I've been following on Instagram as well, but there seems to be a movement there. I'm not sure what it's about, and I really enjoy it. Cynthia Alfonso seems to be the most committed to the poetics of form stuff that I'm interested in. And again, anytime I say that, I feel like I got to explain it. But just that the comics aren't telling stories so much as they're talking about translations of shapes and how shapes interrelate and how forms interrelate and how colors interrelate. Like here, the translation just of una ellipse is here is an ellipse, aquí una ellipse, and just the way these shapes play out throughout the thing and the ellipse being cut. It's just all about those kinds of transformations on shapes and then formal relationships of colors and things throughout a story. And I really love it. It could totally just be poster art disconnected from comics, but they're putting them in comics form, and I really, really like that. So was really excited because I don't think I've got anything else by Cynthia Alfonso. These are just, and I've been waiting for Maria Medem. Supposed to have a book called Zenith like 2 years ago, and it's never come out. I know there was a Maria Medem smoke signal issue, and I didn't get a hold of that, unfortunately. Well, I've been waiting for these artists to come over here and have more work printed. So hopefully we'll be seeing more from these artists now that Cynthia Alfonso is in Fantagraphics. Another artist really excited to get some stuff by is J. Webster Sharp. This is someone else I've been following on Instagram. Been really hesitant to pull the trigger on J. Webster Sharp's stuff, not because I don't like the art, but because the content is just always a little grotesque for me. It seems to be dealing with some kind of trauma in the past. Like it's all very dark. There's a lot of like mutilated, I don't even want to flip through it all, but a lot of like mutilated genitals and weird gross bugs. And I really like the way it looks, but the content is not something I'm really running out to grab a hold of. It seems like they're all silent, a lot of the stippling. So I really, really, really like the look of it. But here you'll see this, it's just like people being tortured, and there's some kind of obvious statement about women in society and things like that going on that's compelling, but it's so grotesque that it's hard for me to want to jump on. So I'm sure I'll get around to grabbing a bunch of her work eventually, because I really like the page layouts and I really like the art, but the content is just, not something I'm super excited about, but excited to have something by her so I can see it not on Instagram, I can see it printed. This is by Kayla E. Didn't really understand this story. Really like the look of it. There seems to be a lot of people playing with these like screen printing looks that I've been getting interested in. I mean, I'm interested in because I'm seeing people play with it, I guess I should say. It seems to be coming out of the risograph community, but like dropping out where you're not having any black, like the line work is some color. These are all apparently adaptations of Richie Rich and Casper. That must be where the compositions are coming from, because the quotes are coming from the Book of Job, and there's like other ones that are from Canteen Kate, Much Ado About Mushrooms, but then there's other ones that are like quotes from the Book of Matthew. I didn't know what to make of this one. It's very experimental, and I love the way it looks, but I don't know what it added up to in terms of story. Then you have, I was a bit disappointed in this because all these other artists seem like really, really new. Then you have a Noah Van Sciver piece, he's a great cartoonist, but I don't know, I just feel like now is like exposing the new things, and everyone knows Noah Van Sciver's work. He's obviously had a ton of it, very big works, Fanta Bukowski, all the stuff that Tom sent over from Uncivilized. It just seems like this shouldn't be in a book that's exposing the newest, coolest people. But it's a fun little story. It's obviously a story from his childhood about Jurassic Park, and as always, really well done. This is Rachel Suskind here doing a very well rendered. I really like the art in this one. It starts off with these watercolors and then goes to this colored pencil stuff that I really, really quite like the art on. But the story in this is just like grotesque and not for me. It's like this character eats their booger, and then that has a dream about them getting their ass licked by these creatures. Somebody gets squished, and then it's all about like, don't eat boogers. I don't know. The content of that one's not for me, but I really like the art. This one here, The Bird Is Gone by Francois Vigneault. This is more like an informational piece about pigeons. Again, really enjoy the production on the art where it's been like done in watercolor and then turned into really big halftones. It seems very purposeful that's been halftoned like this, or that this is somehow put together with tone brushes in Photoshop. I'm not sure. So I enjoy the art, but the lettering was it has serifs on it, and it's red against black, so it's kind of hard for me to read, really small. And then like this script style as well, that small is kind of difficult to read. And then it was all quotes and information, so that one I couldn't even finish reading. I just enjoyed the art, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that find that kind of like factoid comic really interesting, and tracking like pigeons and how pigeons have, there used to be more of them. I guess that's what I got from it before I quit, but it just wasn't something for me. Then we got Tim Lane, another artist that we've interviewed and whose work I find really exciting. This looks like it's from his Steve McQueen ongoing stuff, so I'm sure it will also show up in his collection of Steve McQueen stuff, or the next issue of Happy Hour in America. I really, really love Tim Lane's art, with what they're doing with the colorization here, and the fact that they're not using a spot color. Again, you get the problem that you normally have with, I don't know why this happens when Fantagraphics prints his stuff, but they're doing it in halftones, so the line fidelity is not quite what it could be, but that's probably only me and 3 other people are going to care about that. So his art looks great. One thing that I really, really enjoy about Tim is he will take all of these different approaches. So here he's got like this bit of paper that's cut out that has writing on it, and then these are recreations of, a fictional old comic that relates to Steve McQueen's past, little Stevie, talking about what went on in his past with his mother, his upbringing. And Tim does such a good job here of recreating this look of this old beat up comic that's been scanned in. And then on the inside, just his change in art style is really, really awesome. And the faded pages and all of that, I just really appreciate what Tim Lane does with that stuff. And you can see some more aged comics here, and another type of more like one-off cartoon strips that he's doing with the little Stevie character as well. And again, obviously, like getting them, well, probably scanning in this type of paper and then overlaying that in Photoshop. I'm not sure, but they feel really, really authentic to me. And then you get this piece here, which is more in his Thomas Hart Benton style that he uses on covers, but there's a couple other references in here. I can't remember the guy's name, but there's someone else. There's a vibe here that I'm picking up on, and I really, really like the look of this illustration. So I like that Tim Lane's willing to try all these different styles. I like that he's willing to mash them up. He's willing to treat a comic like as an archive of materials, which I've talked to my friend Brian Davis about, books as archives, and I think Tim does all of that really well. Style play, books as archives, this kind of kaleidoscopic effect that he has in his book, and I'm really interested to see how this appears in the larger context that he's creating. Then there's a one-off here by Max Klottfelter, and this one, really nice art, but it's kind of a comic artist talking about the first time they bought comics, which is not so interesting to me. And then another one where I think, if you're doing a book about new artists, I don't think we need a Peter Bagge story in it. But, people like Peter Bagge stuff, and I really like his cartooning. But this is another one where it's about a cartoonist. And so story-wise, it's like, I don't know. That's kind of that era. That's why this doesn't feel now to me. This feels 90s. This feels like a cartoonist complaining about being a cartoonist in his cartoons type of thing that I think we've moved past. You have people like Banu and Tim Lane and all the other artists in this book that are doing more compelling things, Cynthia Alfonso. So that's where the Noah von Sciver and the Peter Bagge, they just don't feel now. They feel, Peter Bagge feels 90s. Noah von Sciver feels very aughts to me. And I just they don't place well in the rest of the book to me. But I do enjoy these cartoons at the end. And then you have a Noah von Sciver thing on the back here. And he is playing a little bit with, like, this looks more like an Antoine Coss or somebody. So he's taking, like, the more cartooning style that he grew up with, what he draws like now, and then apparently he understands that he's not quite, like, this is what he's doing and this is what's going on now. That's how I read that. And so I think he understands that he doesn't quite fit in this anthology anymore, that it's moved on to, I think comics have moved on to become more literate and more artistic than when we thought comics were literate, where I keep saying, it seems like art school has come to comics, whereas Peter Badge and Dan Clowes and Chris Ware, they were all people who brought comics to art school. Art schools come into comics now, and I think this is what Ethan Van Sciver is saying, is that he feels a little bit old school compared to what's going on now. And that's how I felt about the inclusion of him and Peter Badge in the context of all these other artists that are pushing the boundaries of now. But anyways, overall, always love new now issues from Fantagraphics, and this is probably one of my favorite ones. I don't think there was, other than being confused about the Kayla E story, other than that, I pretty much enjoyed all of them. And even the Kayla E story, I enjoyed the way it looked. So something that I took away from each one of these, which isn't always the case. So really, really encourage you all to go get this one. Check these artists out. Follow them on Instagram. Support what they're doing. A lot of them have self-published things coming out, or things coming out from smaller publishers. They haven't all been picked up by someone as big as Fantagraphics yet. So give them support. They're all great artists. If you enjoy what we're doing here on the channel and want to support us, there's two ways to help. The first one is through our Patreon. We have two different tiers on Patreon. Well, a couple different tiers. We're trying to pare it down to two, but there's two different tiers basically. In the second tier, you can get an exclusive story that's ongoing, interactive with the audience, that you can get voting rights for, called Pronede. You'll also get early access on both tiers to all of our videos. And then in the second tier, you'll get early previews of what Sean and I are working on in our own comics as well. Any of the money that we make off that is what we use to buy the books that will help buy the books that we review. So we just try and turn that right back around into other creators' pockets. And if you want to support Sean and Living the Line, the best thing to do is to support what Sean's doing with Living the Line Publishing. So we'll go ahead and take a look at one of his projects now. House on Fire by Matt Battaglia is a just gorgeous book where Matt's kind of making an emotional response to the years of COVID and wrapping that into a sci-fi dystopian future that really the sci-fi dystopian's backgrounded, and you're focused on the emotional journey of two characters in a really beautiful way. And then that's enhanced by Matt's like really awesome, loose, kind of Paul Popish dry brush work. And then Sean and Matt have worked to get this second kind of orange spot color in there that's going to look really, really beautiful, and has allowed Matt to use his dry brush technique to add tone to the thing too. So with Sean's production technique, this is going to be a gorgeous book with a lot of heart. Thanks for following along. Take it away, Jack.
You want to see all these books? Smash that subscribe button and the like button and the bell, and then you get them.